Hello everyone, Violet here, and today I want to tell you about our family's daily, weekly, and yearly rhythm, which has really deepened through each cycle of the year and also shifted and changed depending on needs of the family. And I just find it such a beautiful practice, and I really like to think in the idea of rhythm more than the idea of routine. I feel like the word routine and that sort of feeling of like having a routine sort of brings you into a state of almost like leaning back into a habit, like a sort of like checking the boxes or sort of like mechanically going through something. Whereas the idea of rhythm or ritual, if you want to heighten it a little bit, has a bit more of like a breathing room, a bit more of a flow feeling. Now, this also ties in a bit with Waldorf homeschooling, which we're doing, but my son is only in kindergarten, so really it all just kind of weaves together and it's not super academic yet, but I can lay the foundations now for what will build onto that. And so I actually think that all three of these types of rhythms could be very helpful for anyone, not just, a family, a homeschooling family, a child, but an adult, even an adult on their own. Like some of these things, I feel like I've been really striving through so much of my adult life to get the right rhythm, get the right routine going, is how I used to think of it. And some of these concepts would have really helped me back then. So anyway, I just wanted to share. So let's start macro and then we'll go micro. So I have some pretty simple layouts to show you. I just kind of wanted to keep everything simple, and obviously you can make these rhythms and routines into like beautiful art pieces if you want. But I wanted to talk about our yearly rhythm because ever since Arthur was a baby, and if you're familiar with my channel, you might have seen my whole series on the Wheel of the Year. Our family's been practicing the Wheel of the Year, and it's the 8 points in the Celtic festivals. Now, I like to think of these in two ways. Not only is it a point in the year, the 8 points, but it's also a period of time. So I like to think of the point, like no matter what, no matter how busy we are, find some way to recognize this point in the Wheel of the Year. So very conscious, intentional acknowledgement, even if it's small and simple. That's also where we can build up some of our, family traditions, which is pretty exciting to sort of create that on your own. But it's also a season, like it's also a period of time, and things happen within that period of time. And many of those things repeat year after year, and you get kind of into the feeling of the season. So something really special about Waldorf education is that actually all of the points, almost all of the 8 points, are recognized. There's like a bit of a school celebration. I mean, naturally around Yule, we've got the holidays, we've got Christmas. Imbolc is Candlemas. This isn't celebrated in every school, but for example, in Arthur's homeschool program, they created these incredible ice candles and an ice altar with candles on it for Imbolc Candlemas. And then, we've got Easter around Ostara time. We've got, they do a May Day celebration at the Waldorf schools, for Beltane, really like the same time, where they dance around a pole with ribbons. It's really beautiful. There's St. John's at the summer solstice at Letha, which has a huge bonfire and like singing around the bonfire. Lammas, I'll get back to that. There's a holiday called Michaelmas at Mabon at the autumn equinox, and this is all about bravery, and there are dragon festivals that happen at that time in the schools. And then around Samhain, around Halloween, they do like a St. Martin's celebration in which the children have lanterns and walk in the nighttime, like into the dark with their lanterns. And sometimes there's fun stuff like dressing up and stories that happen. So the 1 point, which I think mostly probably actually gets lost because it's at the end of summer and it's like before the school year begins, is Lammas, which happens to be one of my favorite holidays. So our family has really taken up a family tradition around that time. It's the grain festival, the first harvest festival, and so baking bread is just a beautiful thing to do, and that's something, I've always, strived to do during that time. But another thing that we just started this year is that actually our cat last year passed on August 2nd. So we're incorporating it as this family tradition to go to this cafe at a flower farm in the morning and then go and pick flowers. It's like a pick your own flower. So in a way, it's like a harvest. We're picking flowers and we create a bouquet, one for us at home, one for us to go and leave on our cat's grave. So that's an example about how you can start to kind of weave in your own traditions. Now, I used to also do this personally when I was just, a person on my own. I was creating my own traditions around these 8 points, and I just really appreciated the beauty and the symmetry of this. Another thing that we've incorporated, which you might see in the middle of this circle, is biodynamic gardening, and we're doing the Maria Thune tree log preparation technique, which is kind of like the vegan preparations. So a lot of them are made by taking a certain kind of herb, collecting it, putting it inside of a hollowed out tree log, and then they all have different things, but a lot of them you bury them for like a year, you uncover it the next year, add it to the compost, or it's something that maybe you put into a spray. Anyway, you can really get into biodynamic gardening, but I found a way even with that to lay it out so that there are points that we try to do for each season. And this is our first year really doing it. We're into the summer and so far we've kept up. I'm really excited to see how that progresses. And I do have some recommended books, and I've got more of like a PDF version of this available to Constellation Club members if you want to check out more about that. So now let's get into the weekly rhythm, and this is something that I would have found really, really helpful. This is one of those, which is that each day of the week is connected to a planet. In the Waldorf schools, there's a whole theme for each day with each planet, which I'll get into. But you could also use this for your own personal focus of each day. For example, if you want to have a weekly time where you're journaling, or a weekly time where you're working on an art project, or cleaning, or kind of checking the boxes of business stuff, answering emails, that sort of thing, you can align it with the planets so that it takes place at the same day each week. And it's really easy to track in that way, but you're also kind of getting yourself in tune with the planet. I just think that's really special. So how this first started out was that each day of the week has a color associated to it. This is really, really helpful with small children who, they're not going to have a concept of what is Monday, and so if you want the child to kind of feel secure in the family rhythms, one thing that we really try to do, and I think is a special thing, especially for the young child, is to dress in the color of the day, and then they already have a feeling for what the day might entail if you're keeping a weekly rhythm going. So we really leaned into that more in those early childhood years. Sunday is white, and then I've got each of these colors here. Sunday is the sun, it's white. Monday is the moon, it's purple. Tuesday is Mars, it's red. Wednesday, Mercury, yellow. Thursday is Jupiter, orange. Friday is Venus, green. And Saturday is Saturn, blue. But as a mom, and honestly as anyone, I would find this helpful, is that I'm really using this to plan out our meals for the week. So do a weekly meal planning. That way the grocery shopping is pretty simple. I've also found a way with the grocery shopping to save a lot of money because I know exactly what I'm going to be using, and I can plan out ahead of time which store is it the best deal at, or which things am I prioritizing getting local, buying organic, buying biodynamic, doing a CSA. The stars for some of these things are things that hopefully our garden's going to help provide for as well. But then I've got a shopping list for each store, and I have an idea for about how much I'll need for a month, for a week. So we shop vegan at the grocery stores, and we also prioritize organic, although we look at, if you check out the list, there's a clean 15 list of things that I usually clean, more so clean from pesticides versus dirty dozen, the things that are really heavy in pesticides. So for example, wild blueberries being a wild plant, that's not on the clean 15. I haven't seen it listed there before, but it is, to my knowledge, not usually cultivated in the ways that blueberries, which are drenched are, so we'll, buy non-organic wild blueberries. We go through that so much. I'll show you in the meal plan why. And then things like avocados that have like melons, like thicker skin, things that are like that on the Clean 15. Anyway, so just a little tip if you're thinking about that, but just to say, it really helps with saving money, helps with prioritizing exactly what we want. And the other interesting thing that I wanted to say about the planets is that each one has a grain of the day. And this is often incorporated in the Waldorf schools with snacks and stuff like that, and using it to plan out the meals. But here is something that's a little bit complicated. So the spiritual day actually starts at 6 p.m. the day before. So this actually works really well for meal planning because basically, so Monday, for example, is rice. We do sushi rice bowl Monday for lunch. But the night before, we will do the Monday grain. So we'll have sushi rice bowl with carrots, avocados, cashews, nori, all of that, coconut aminos, so good. And then the next day, so I make enough so that we can have leftovers for the next day at lunchtime, and then make a whole new dinner for dinner, and then save for leftovers the next day. So actually we're getting the corresponding grain of the day. It's the night before and then the day of, and that corresponds with the spiritual day, which starts at 6 p.m. So if you're working with the planets, if you're doing some kind of meditation or affirmation or something with that, if you're doing it the night before, you would actually might want to think about doing the next day's planet and almost like setting yourself up and preparing for the next day. So yeah, so for Mars, we have barley, and we do, this one's kind of fun because there's a number of things we can do. We make this barley bolognese sauce with pasta, or we make like a stew, or we make like a Buddha bowl with roasted veggies and things like that. And then Mercury is millet. We make a Mediterranean bowl with millet, olives, avocado, tahini, cauliflower, like all sorts of things. And I'll tell you a little bit about, because you might notice like that we have a very specific sort of way of eating, and I'll explain that here in a second too. Jupiter is rye, so we get this rye sourdough bread and we make a soup. I'm also trying to think of ways that we can really incorporate our garden vegetables. We really focus this year on growing 4 things and growing a lot of it, and things that we can store over the winter. And those things are butternut squash, carrots, onions, and beets. So Friday is oats, and we make beet burgers with like an oat base and also some grains. I can also use some leftover grains in that. Like usually I still have some millet, and anyway, it works well. Saturday is corn, so we make burritos with quinoa, spinach, cashew cream, onions, things like that. Sunday, the grain is wheat, so we do a pasta with like cashew cream, that sort of a thing, or red sauce. We're really into cashew cream, if you can't tell. And then we've looped all the way back around to Monday. The moon is rice. So making the leftover lunch the next day isn't always necessary, because sometimes we're having lunch at the school program, in which case I would just make enough to send with Lars, my husband, so that he has some to take with him to work. So that'll depend. And our like diet, if you would call it that, is super flexible when we're out and when we're at the school. However, some things that I'm trying to incorporate at home, which you can see in this, is avoiding a few certain things. Again, this is not like a you should never eat this, it's not like I'm not making a blatant statement. I'm not saying that everyone should eat this way. I'm not even saying it's actually the most healthy way to eat. I don't know, and it's different for everyone, and everyone's needs are different, and it's super individual what you need to eat. So just like, take this with a grain of salt. But we've been avoiding legumes and potatoes and mushrooms, and this comes from Steiner's work through that esoteric stream. It has to do with potatoes can really bind you to the material world. It actually has to do with like meditative practices and stuff. Legumes can make your dream life really chaotic and impure, which I've actually really experienced. Like when I have legumes like beans, etc., like my dreams are chaotic and crazy, and they really get more focused and more balanced, I'd say, when I'm not. And mushrooms fall into a similar category with that. I used to be really into the medical medium, so I still have some of the influence from that as well. Although, of course, we're eating wheat, for example, but we'd really prioritize like organic sourdough wheat, for example. So yeah, that might be a little off topic, but I just thought it was fun to mention it as I'm showing you our meal plan. But also just to say that, planning to have the same meal on the same day each week, or having kind of just even a general prompt, like here's this grain to incorporate, or maybe it's something else that the planets make you think of. I just think that has just really created this rhythm and predictability in our lives that makes it easier for me to meal plan, cook, makes it easier for a family, makes it easier for having a kid who's like ready to eat whatever is on the table. So yeah. And lastly, I want to show you our daily rhythm. And I just want to show you how simple this can really be. So this is a common thing that you'll see if you look up like Waldorf education or homeschooling, is that people have these like rainbow, sometimes they're really beautiful, like watercolor rainbow schedules for their day. So I have this here, and you'll see that each point is really simple, and I also don't have a specific time set for it. Sometimes the time really matters. If we've got our homeschool program that we go to, or if we have extracurricular or things like that, then yes, the time matters, but it can also kind of go off of a sort of a feel thing. I'd say it is important, like having, your meals at a similar time each day, then your body kind of prepares for it, and that is nice, but you don't have to keep this as like a super strict clock kind of calendar. It's a rhythm. So starting in the morning with red, I have morning mindfulness practices, and some of them I do just for myself, some of them I do with my son, and we've got the chores, getting ready, checking on my planner, that sort of a thing. And breakfast is included. I should mention too that I've made mine super simple, but something that I've kind of internalized, which you'll notice, I think this is helpful for anyone, definitely helpful if you have children, but one of the Waldorf recommendations is that if you alternate breathing in and breathing out activities. Now at first I thought that meant higher energy and lower energy activities. It actually doesn't. Now my understanding of it is that it's something that's more held and like focused and structured, then alternating with something that is more like let loose and free form and free play and that sort of a thing. Downtime even. So next, we move into the orange time of the day, which is meaningful learning and work. I have here because this is when I'm teaching, and my son is at the program that we go to. I'm teaching there, teaching art this year, and then also we have homeschool days at home and activities at home, and then lunch is included in this time too. Then moving into the yellow time, this is kind of that early afternoon time. There's a restful time and snack time kind of included in that time. And then we move into green, which is more like open play or creative things, like we might have extracurriculars like a music class or outside time, gardening, that sort of a time. And then we move from that into blue, which is helping with cooking. My son is really actually helping us with cooking now, which is so exciting. It's good for him too. Cleaning, same thing, making it a family activity, getting the house in order before the evening, having dinner. So this also includes like doing dishes after dinner. We just like try to get everything set in the evening before the next day. As we get into the school year, I'm sure this time will also include like maybe packing what he needs for the next day in his bag, that sort of a thing. Making sure that a lunch is packed for anyone who needs it on the go the next day. And then for our evening routine, this includes like bathing. For me, it includes exercise. That's for some reason, I think it's because I'm not a morning person, but I've only been able to really like get into the exercise habit at night. Actually, I'm doing Pilates now. I'm not doing what you think of as Pilates. I'm doing something called Contrology, which is the original Pilates. It's like a set of 34 exercises. And now I'm going off topic again, but just to say, I really recommend it because it's you build on each one, and so it's really great for making the habit of it, because you start with just the first one, and it takes you like 30 seconds or something, you know what I mean? And once you've mastered that, then you add on the second, then you add on the third, and it's nice because I'm using like a small book and I can just look in the book. I don't have to put on a video to do it, which I wouldn't, want to do around my son, for example, although I usually do this when he's in bed. But anyway, it's more relaxing. I follow a book, and it's just been easy to really set the habit because, hardly anything would get in the way of me doing like a 30-second exercise. And then as I add on to it, it's in small increments. So I'm building up to the 34. And once you do the whole 34, which I haven't gotten to, it's taken me like since January to get to, I think, number 8. But anyway, not to discourage you, I think it's actually really good because it's like, working in this incremental way and you really feel the difference and you can see the improvement over time. But I think when you do all 34, when I've looked at people, like videos and stuff of people doing the whole thing, it's like half an hour. So it's really doable. Anyway, so I do that in the evening, and then I also have some routines with my son to put him to bed, which also corresponds similarly to the morning with what I also do before going to bed, prayers, reading, that sort of a thing. So I like to think of the daily rhythm as a rainbow, the weekly rhythm as the planetary cycle, and the yearly rhythm as the wheel with the 8 points. So I hope that this has been inspiring to you in some way, or you've gotten something out of this. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you have anything that you like to do or you want to share. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.